Okay, we're live.
Yay!
Hello. Let's give it a few seconds.
Okay.
Everything work. Work. Okay, I'm gonna start. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Clockwork Angel live show. Thank you so much for joining us and for reading with us this month. My name is Laia, and this, I always get it the wrong way, this is my co host Bianca.
Hello. Thank you for joining us and for all of the participation on our social media. We just want to let you know that this book club and live show is a safe space for everyone, and you're all welcome here. And we also expect everybody to be respectful and kind in the live chat and the comments.
I feel like I'm in a weird mood. Yes, we're so happy to be here. Our first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy, which is the second trilogy of the Cassandra Clay Shadowhunter books. Kind of exciting to be starting a new trilogy. So,
And it's
Clockwork
technically
Angel.
a prequel, so that's fun.
Oh yes, it is a prequel. It is. And in case you're wondering, we are reading in publication order. That's why we read Clockwork Angel after the first Mortal Instruments trilogy. Okay, shall we move to start with our general thoughts?
Sure.
Okay, you can go first.
Ooh, okay.
I feel like the guest person always goes first.
I think we do that, yeah.
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 Okay.
So first of all, I noticed that this was the first book that she didn't split into 3 parts. I was waiting for it to pop up and then it never did.
That's
Um,
true. Interesting.
yeah.
I didn't pick up on that, but that's true.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing because I've always felt like the Infernal Devices was dragged out really long, like longer than it needed to be, personally. So don't know.
Maybe
Maybe
it's
she
because it wasn't split up, you felt it was really long.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like maybe like that structure that she used before helped her writing because the Mortal Instruments was really fast paced versus this book. I've always felt like it took longer for some reason.
It also took me longer. I don't know why, but I think it was partly my fault because I read in like such short little increments. I didn't just like read, but it took
Okay.
me long. But maybe but I feel like also the writing is
Yeah.
less fast paced.
Yeah. Yeah. I also said that somewhere later. Um but anyway, maybe I feel like that affected her writing, I guess. And then I also noticed that there was like a lot of classism and stuff that was mentioned throughout. Like they would make comments about like servants and how the shadow hunters were like address each other, and that was different to the people at the time. So like it was kind of suggesting in some ways they were more like forward thinking than the mundanes, but at the same time they were still really looking down on downworlders at the time. So
Yeah.
and
But
like
sorry, I feel like they're looking down on like the downworlders. I understand that for that time because I feel like it took many years for that to kind of be less of a thing. And even like, I know we shouldn't be talking advanced for like about the books we haven't read in the book club yet, but even after the Mortal Instruments series, like in the last book of the Whites and stuff, Alex starts the Downworlder Shadowhunter Alliance, and that's way later than this. So I feel like them looking down on Downworlders was still like very normal for that
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I just
And
find
like
it
if you want to,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, if you want to like say that they were forward thinking, I think they were forward thinking in the sense that they didn't look down on their servants, and they um treated their servants like Sophie and Thomas as equals, because um they're like really friendly to Sophie, like really treat her well, and Thomas always trained with the boys, and they really much treat them like equals. So I guess in that aspect they're a bit more forward thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was also talking about. But I was wondering if that was just the people at the institute and not just Shadowhunters in general. So I feel like Cassie Clay, she writes characters who we want to like. So they're always like the good guys and they're nice to everybody most of the time. Um, so maybe they were different in that way, and maybe the rest of the Shadowhunters weren't like that either, because then in the Moral Instruments as well, they're also the ones who are like more cool with Downworlders, and they're the ones making changes.
Maybe, probably. I don't know. It's hard to say because you don't really get a perspective from a different institute
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
different countries at that time. So it's
yeah.
kind of
So
hard to say, I think.
it is quite so. And like Tessa was like contradicting things a lot of the time as well. Like I found like she herself was quite like classist and things with her thinking, but when when she saw like how Jessamine, or however you want to say it, how she behaved,
Jessamine.
she had a problem with it, you know?
What
So,
part of what are you saying?
like, Jessamine was very, like, spoilt, and she was sometimes mean to their servants and stuff
Sophie,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, and then Tessa had a problem with her doing that, but at the same time, she was surprised at the other people who
Weren't
treated, yeah. So it was like a confusing point of view.
That's kind of true.
Yeah, so I never really like grasped what she was trying to indicate with all of this, whether like I don't do you know what I mean? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was just
It's
not
like she
well
was
fleshed.
contradict.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she was contradict. I get what you're saying. Like I've never thought about this before, but what you're saying is she was contradicting herself because um we've literally said it. If I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna repeat it. Like she couldn't believe Jessamine was like so mean, but then she was like, "Whoa, the other people," because she was like shocked. She was like, "Charlotte treats Sophie like a friend," but then she was like, "Oh, in the books I read, people always spill their hearts out to their servants."
Yeah, that stuff, and I was like, "Girl, are you okay? Like, and, like, do you have a split personality? What's going on?"
It was, I don't know, it was probably kind of confusing for her because I don't think she's had servants before. Like she hasn't lived a life where she has had servants. She's only read about them in books. So I feel
Mm.
like for her it was confusing, and like she was contradicting herself because she was trying to wrap her brain around how it worked
That's a good point.
and how she thought servants were treated versus how they are treated. Is there a
Lila's
dog
just
behind you?
okay. That's happening. But yeah, I just thought that was weird. Um, and then they also like questioned the role of women in society quite a lot, which was like cool to see. And like all of the three main, well, like Tessa, Jessamine, and Charlotte, they were all like quite strong in different ways, and their personalities were also very strong. And even
Mm-hmm.
Sophie and Camille, they also had like quite like strong dominant personalities, which was like cool to see, especially for that time. I don't know if you had
My
any
head.
opinions on that.
And I can't get it down because this thing's mirror image and it's so confused. Okay, never mind. I should just pretend that didn't happen. There we go. Sorry. Yes, I do agree. They were all very strong women. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool because Tessa is within herself a strong woman, but she never thought that women could be that way. So for her to see all these women around her like fighting and um Charlotte running the institute and like being ahead of something, um I feel like that kind of was like a bit mind blowing to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was cool to
Mm-hmm.
see. Oh, and I also really always like how the institutes have found family kind of vibes, and you can see how much they all really care about each other, even when they're being horrible to each other. They're like their own little families, and most of them are parentless or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So
Because there's that part in the book where Jem says that they are all orphans, like they use the word orphan.
yeah,
Which I always wonder about the word orphan. I don't hear it said in today's society, so don't know what that's about. Anyway, um, um, oh, and then James says that they are all orphans, and that's why they are there because Tessa was like feeling so alone, but then they were all alone, but together. That was
yeah,
a really
and
cute
even
part of the
even
book.
Charlotte and Henry. Yeah, so I like that.
I also like that.
And then I also noticed how in both the Mortal Instruments and in this one, vampires were the first downworlders that were properly introduced, because you don't find out that Mrs. Dark and Mrs. Black, is that what they're called? That the
Yes,
one is
the Dark Sisters.
warlock. Yeah, them. You don't really find out about them properly until later, so you don't really get introduced to warlocks in a positive way
Except for
until
Magnus.
yeah, and he
Mm-hmm.
shows up. But in both those worlds, it was the
Vampire.
vampires causing stuff, and then Magnus, and
That's pretty
that
true because yes, the start of the Mortal Instruments series, we had that whole thing with the Vampire Hotel, and now it
yeah,
was also the vampire
house thing.
storyline. I feel
Yeah,
like I feel like Cassandra Clare was maybe still developing the whole fairy world, like the fairy part of the world in her like brain or whatever before introducing it to the books. We don't
yeah,
even see werewolves in this book really, but I feel like she was still kind of trying to flesh it out because fairy as a
place.
concept is very much complex. Like it probably took more like thinking, and I just think that she didn't really have
Research.
it sorted in her brain,
Yeah,
and that's why it
yeah.
didn't really show up in the books yet because this is obviously publication order, so she hadn't written about fairies like really at all. I think once or twice they come up.
Yeah.
Do they even?
There was the one where they went to see the Sealy Queen, and then
Oh yes,
they
yes,
got
yes. This one
attacked
see the
by a
queen.
fairy in the wood, in the park
Yes.
or something in this one. And I was like, why can we not see any good fairies? I was really upset about that. I was like, oh, we just have this one random one that is a bad guy and he gets killed, and that's all.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. I just think she didn't have fairy and fairies quite figured out yet.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then the last thing I just said was, I think she was also trying to show a bit of the older views that they had
Mm.
before the present day, of shadow hunters and how they worked and stuff. And I also don't know really why she has to have the enclave and the conclave. I don't know why that has to be a thing.
The
Uh,
lingo. Yeah.
yeah, because the enclave is British or like UK, and then conclave is American. And I was
American.
just like, why did you need to do that? It just like doesn't really add anything to the story.
I don't know.
But
I think I've always thought it's kind of cool. I've always kind of liked it.
it
Like that
confused me.
they have different like what's the word? Lingo is the wrong word, but what's the word like that I'm looking for?
Jargon.
Jargon. I feel like there's another word. Like when you talk about the way these people talk compared to those people. Slang, that's the word. It's like kind of, but jargon is also the right, like kind of slang jargon, how they kind of just have their like own thing. I don't know, I've
Yeah.
always thought it was kind of cool. I just had a thought about the previous point you made about the vampires. Um, I feel like vampires are very easy to write.
Yeah. But also she's a Buffy stan, so not surprised.
Yeah, because there's just so many things about vampires, like in media and in books and stuff. So vampires are like very easy to write, and she kind of put her own twist on what their teeth look like, but generally vampires are pretty standard.
And it
So
was
where
popular.
fairies aren't.
Yeah, like fairy books weren't popular at the time, but vampire books were. Like that was like when Twilight and all of those things were like cracked to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so she obviously wanted to cash in on that as well, um, as a draw, but then also have. And I was thinking about it now because I am rewatching Buffy, and I was like, she literally created a Buffy race of people. That's what she did. Because she's a demon slayer. That's like the slayer's job,
Oh.
but she's like the only one. So literally Cassie Clay was like, oh, what if there were more slayers? Let's do it, but with zombies."
I don't know. I've never seen Buffy, so I can't like contribute any thoughts, but that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Pretty cool
So
concept, though, not gonna lie.
yeah, yeah. I was just seeing more things and I was like,
Mm,
mm-hmm.
that makes
and
sense.
and she also kind of likes when the couple, like the main couple, kind of mess with each other. Like she's quite into doing that, which is another like Buffy thing that's
Mm.
like, and also like a Dramining thing, like kind of like not really enemies to lovers because it's not really enemies, but you know,
But like it starts off
yeah, not on a good
mean.
note, and
Mm.
she does that, and I was like, because yeah, I don't want to give like spoilers for Buffy if people don't know what happens. Um, but yeah, that's
Wait,
like
that make
the
it worse.
yeah. So interesting.
Interesting. Is that everything you have?
Yeah, that's all that I wrote for like 20 minutes. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. I have written a lot, so don't be sorry. We need to both write a lot. Okay. Oh, I just made a note that this was my third time reading this book. Um, and it had, if I can speak, it, let me just get my thoughts together. It has never been my favorite trilogy. So I'm very much aware that the Infernal Devices trilogy is many people's favorite. Like when people talk about Shadowhunters, they talk about this, like the Clockwork series, and it's many, many people's favorite. And I've never understood that because it has never been my favorite. In fact, it is my least favorite trilogy of the whole Shadowhunters
Universe.
universe.
Yeah, probably
Or
me too, actually.
so yeah, so I've never really understood why it's people's favorites. It's my least favorite, and I don't know if that's because I'm generally not into historical fiction. I don't enjoy historical fiction, so I don't know if that's like part of the reason, but it's my least favorite. So there's that.
I love historical fiction, and it's also my least favorite. So I think it's
Mm,
just like because she started off trying this as a new thing, and it doesn't have the same like speed or flow to it that you want.
mm, it has. And I was thinking because I remember DNFing the trilogy as a whole, but I don't think I DNF'd this book. I might have done it in the second book or third. I'm not quite sure, but I DNF'd the trilogy the first time I tried to read it.
Yeah, me too.
Um, and just I'm generally not a fan of the whole Clockwork storyline. I don't like all the Clockwork stuff, but that's just personal opinion. Um, I wanted to say something now. I think I forgot.
I think
Anyway,
I feel like the way that she does it is quite boring.
mm, wait, did I not write a question about? Yes, so we'll talk about like the actual writing of it in the question part because I do have a question about that. And that's why I wanted to discuss it because I have opinions about that. Okay, so I said that I found it very like endearing and like really cute when Tessa kept referencing things from novels. Um,
Yeah.
when she came across them in real life, like when dealing with a situation in real life, she's like, in novels they do this and this and this, and then she was like referencing it like according to what was happening to her, and like being like, okay, you need to react like that, or I need to react like this because this is how they do it in novels, and I just thought that was so cute.
I also like that. That was one of my favorite parts.
Oh, yeah, it's just like a really a cute thing that I don't remember. I don't think.
Yeah. I feel like we're paying a lot more attention to small details because we're reading it to talk about it. So when I would read it before, I would just be like, okay, when are we gonna get to the action or like the kissing or whatever I was interested in at the time? I don't know. Um, or like the lore, I guess, because I find like the Shadowhunter lore really interesting. And
Hmm.
I guess because this is another like introduction to the world, like you can enter the Shadowhunter world through this book. It's a lot of repetition of stuff we already know, so that like would be annoying if you were just reading it just in general, if you've already read other Shadowhunter books.
That's pretty true. And both City of Bones and Clockwork Angel kind of have the same premise in a way, where it's a
Yeah.
girl who doesn't know the shadow world exists and she enters the shadow world and she learns all these things. So like they're both very similar in that aspect.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of similarities, actually. I think I mentioned it later for some of
Yes.
your questions. Yeah.
Okay. And then I just thought that was really cool to see. Why can't I talk today? It was really cool to see where Church came from.
I know, right?
The
That was
cat,
super
because we
cute.
do meet Church in Mortal Instruments, and he's like the Institute cat. And in this book, we find out where Church came from, which was really
Yeah,
cute.
that was really
And
cute.
um, I think I always knew he was Jem's cat first, but I kind of forgot that he was Jem's because you kind of just think of him as an Institute cat, but technically he is Jem's cat.
Yeah, that cat lives a long time.
No, there's some magic involved there. There's magic involved with him and Jem and Meow, like I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, this next point is pretty long. Oh, okay, so I read Chain of Iron pretty recently before I read this book because Chain of Iron just came out like just over a month ago, I think.
Mm.
And so I found it really interesting reading this right after reading Chain of Iron because I saw a lot, okay, not maybe not that much, but I saw similarities between the two books, and it made the reading experience different and like interesting to read it after Chain of Iron, like so closely. Like you see things that you previously wouldn't have seen. For example, um, they obviously both take place in London, and what I noticed was the house that James. Okay, disclaimer. I'm going to talk a bit about Chain of Iron now. Like, okay, um, the house that James and Cordelia live in Chain of Iron is on the same street as the house
Yeah.
that Jessamine lived in with her parents, which I
Yeah.
found pretty cool. I don't know, like she probably did that on purpose, or maybe she only knows the name of one street in London. I don't know.
Maybe.
That was cool. Also, another thing. Oh, not really, but there were a few other streets also that were the same and like locations that were the same. And
Yeah.
then Lucy from Chain of Iron. So Lucy is one of the main characters from Chain of Iron. I'm not gonna say who she is in case that's a spoiler. I just realized that. But
Yeah.
in this book you see where Lucy's name comes from. Like, did you notice that? So Lucy's name comes from A Tale of Two Cities, which they read in this book.
Oh.
Will and Tessa both read A Tale of Two Cities, and they both, I believe they both at different times um, mention or like reference Lucy from A Tale of Two Cities, like with the same spelling and everything. So, um, and that's like the connection. Me trying not to give spoilers, and I was just, it was like so cool. I was like, that's where Lucy's name comes from.
That's pretty cool. I didn't
Because we
pick up on that.
obviously, yeah, we obviously know where James's name comes from, and then now we see where Lucy's name comes from as well.
Yeah, that was cool. I think
Yes.
when I was reading that part, because I do remember like A Tale of Two Cities being mentioned, but that was when my dad was trying to talk to me, and I was like,
Oh.
oh, listening and being like, I need to finish this book, Dad, and he was like, I don't even know what he was talking about.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad
But
you told me about
Lucy
that.
from A Tale of Two Cities is mentioned, like not just once. I think like two or three times maybe throughout the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's also like how earlier I said that Tessa references books, and she referenced Lucy regarding something happening in her own life.
Okay,
Yeah, I just thought that was really, really cool.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I think that Cassandra Clare writes very good characters. Like I think she's very, very good at writing characters, and like her characters are always so lovable. Like you just like want to love them, or if they're hateable, they're like really hateable. You know, and they're always very fleshed out. Like even some side characters, like the characters just feel like not their, I'm not talking about their storyline necessarily, but just them as a person always feel like really fleshed out. And
Mm.
I just thought she was really good at writing characters.
I think so too. But also, like, she only mentions really like relevant characters most of the time. It's really rare that she'll mention like a character that isn't important, is what I've noticed as well. Like, there are some side characters that are just briefly mentioned, but like their names end up being like related to someone who is important, even if they
Mm,
themselves aren't really.
yeah,
So,
but that kind of makes sense though. You can't write a story about an irrelevant character.
yeah, I know. Um,
Mm,
but I think she also, I don't know, she let the characters run away with her sometimes, especially in like the later books when there are a lot of characters who are all kind of important. So in the Dark Artifices and the Last Hours, those like recent trilogies, she has a lot of characters and they're all important and the names start running together. So
I just think she like really loves her characters. Like
yeah.
I agree, but I think she just really loves her characters and she like wants to explore them all and she's like, because this is my work. Like you can see she just puts so much love into them. Even though there's a lot of them, she puts so much love into all of them, which
I
I
think
like.
so. But I just don't know how people who haven't read any of the previous books know what's going on in the later books. So,
No, because all those family names are relevant.
yeah,
You need to know which Herondale is which Herondale and which Lightwood is which Lightwood.
yeah. Like you'll like lose so much if you don't. Like it's like some people who don't read the books before watching certain movies or shows, like I don't know how they comprehend anything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh, so in this book, Benedict Lightwood wanted himself or his son, Gideon Gabriel. I can never keep like I can never distinguish between Gideon and Gabriel.
It's because when she does things where they start with the same letter, they're just the same character. That's just what
Wait, which
happened.
one is the older one? The one that was 18 that was at the meeting in this book? That was Gabriel, right?
I think Gabriel was the only one mentioned in this book. I can
Yes.
check that.
So Benedict Lightwood wanted himself or Gabriel to run the institute, to like be
Yeah.
head of the institute because he didn't believe Charlotte could do it, but he's just kind of an asshole and he just wants to have power, you know. Um, and just something I noted was that in the Mortal Instruments, Mayrus Lightwood is the head of the institute. So Benedict wanted like his family name to be head, but then in the future in New York, there is a Lightwood that is head of the institute. So like even though it didn't happen then, there's a Lightwood that's head of the institute now, or well, in the Mortal
Yeah.
Instruments. So it's just kind of like saw that parallel.
Okay. Yeah, that is quite cool. And like they also kind of have an interesting history though of like the parents being into bad stuff.
Who? What?
The Lightwoods, because like
Uh,
Benedict is not really a nice person and then Mayrus and Robert were in the circle. So
mm,
they are dabblers in the bad stuff.
that's true. But yeah, the Lightwoods did end up on top in the future.
Yeah. After they ran away to a different country.
I know. I don't know if we don't like find out how they got there. I don't think.
I think they were slightly like banished ish. Like they all got into trouble after being in the circle. And that was happening in Idris, right?
Oh yes, that's true.
Yeah, that was like
Oh
the
yes, you're right. And then they were sent to run the New York Institute for punishment. Okay,
yeah.
you're right. Yep.
So they were clearly like, America, this is where you go
Mm,
to be punished.
yes.
Goodness.
Okay. Oh, and then I just had like this thought that like you're meant to be sad for Jem. Like when you read about Jem, your heart just always needs to break. Like Jem is written to make you sad and make you
Yeah.
feel sorry for him. He's like written to bring out your empathy or whatever, your sadness, your sorry
Mm.
feeling.
He's just like a little puppy. Like you can't have bad thoughts about him.
No, you really can't.
Poor baby.
um, I know. It's so sad though. And you'll never stop feeling sad for him, like ever, until like the end of um Dark Artifices. You just always feel sad for him until then. Oh, and then an interesting thing I noted was that at the end of the book, Magnus said that Will's beauty doesn't move him. Like, do you remember him saying that?
Yeah, because there's
He
something
was like, Will's beauty doesn't move him, but physically, he's described to look exactly the same as Alec.
Yeah.
So that was just something I noted, like a parallel. Like he's saying, Will's beauty does not move me, but Alec looks exactly the same as Will.
Yeah. Like their features are the same.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that was just like to highlight how like messed up Will is at the moment. And also what he did at the end of that book, I got really pissed off. I got
What did he
really
do
upset.
again?
He keeps trying to push people away, right? Because he's all like trying to
Oh, with
punish
Tessa.
himself. Yeah. And then he
Uh,
said like horrible things to her. And I was
yeah.
like, how dare you do that? I feel like that's half of why I also DNF'd, because I was like, she's gonna end up with this man who said all of this stuff to her, and I'm just gonna be upset.
But it always happens. Like they always have this like mean personality and say mean things, and then there's always some twisted reason behind it, and then they come out better on the other side.
Buffy.
Anyway, it was, but I feel like even though the two of them, Will and Alec, look the same, it's their personalities that influence the way they look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if you have an
It's like,
ugly personality, it's gonna make your looks look ugly, even if you look exactly the same as someone he loves in the future.
yeah. Like even Jessamine as well, like she's meant to be like the prettiest girl, but she's always scowling, so she can't really be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And she's mean to everyone as well. Ugh.
And that's why they always think Tessa is the pretty one, even though Tessa's described to look really, she's really described like a cardboard box. Tell me I'm wrong.
Fair. Is she even described? I don't even remember.
Yes, she like describes herself as being like really just
Plain.
bland.
Yeah.
Mm.
But that's
Yeah.
like typical. I'm not like other girls.
But still they think she's prettier, even though Jessamine is objectively prettier,
Oh,
which is
another thing that Cassie Clay does is she makes like her main girl extra. Like Clary has like a weird like extra superpower thingy that makes her special, and so does Tessa.
I
It's like
mean, makes for
into
more interesting storytelling.
yeah.
Because I mean, if they were both just normal, what story would there be?
Yeah, but then there's no hope for us. Okay, the normal girls with nothing. No, I'm joking.
Oh, my dog is scratching at my door. Oh, yay. This is also just kind of a nod to future books we haven't read, and I just wanted to mention it now because I think like in the future when we do read those books, I'll forget to say it maybe. Is that Jem is like the total softy, like he just, completely soft, but he's kind of also weak in a way, like not physically, but his self. And then
Yeah.
as the series goes on and as time goes on and he goes through a lot of stuff, he becomes like this really strong character. And I feel like he really started off very weak within himself, and then by like, for example, the Dark Artifices, he's like this really strong person.
Yeah. Like I think also because like knowing what's in the future is what's driving me now to finish these books, and like I like them more now because I know where it ends up. Whereas at the beginning I was just like, I don't care about any of you guys because they're not really all that likable when you just meet them. I didn't really like any of them at all, and that's why I didn't stick it out and finish the trilogy. the
Mm.
first time around.
That's why I also don't ever believe how this trilogy can be someone's favorite,
Yeah.
everyone's favorite, basically. I just don't know how.
I feel like they
But
say it because of the end. Because of how it's wrapped up at the end, because her endings are really good. And like I kind of low key feel like these books could have been shorter, this trilogy. Like they could have been like half the size that they are, because nothing else that actually happens is really important other than like the arc of the main three characters. Like that's like
mhm.
why most people
Yeah,
read.
but in saying that, I do think that this book was written better than I remember. Like, I
Yeah,
do actually think it was written very well.
it was written well.
Yeah,
I think it has to do with the characters not being like likable, because
maybe.
I'm like a character driven person, and if I'm like not rooting for anyone, I won't care about the story. And I wasn't
Mm,
caring about it before. Except for
mm.
Magnus. I was like not
Okay, but
caring about
Magnus,
him.
I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. The Shadowhunter book is not a Shadowhunter book without Magnus Bane.
That is very true. I don't, is there
hmm
anyone that he's not in?
No, he's in every single one. That's why I say that. You can't have a Shadowhunter book without Magnus. You just can't. If it exists, I'm gonna throw it away.
That's fair.
um. Okay. Okay. So I wrote here that the bad things that happen in this book objectively aren't that bad. Like, let me explain. Um, so like I feel like what happens to the Shadowhunters later on, even in the trilogy we just finished, the Mortal Instruments, what happens to them is so much worse than what happens to these people. Like objectively, these Shadowhunters have smaller problems than the ones later.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Um, but it was still a bad experience for them in the moment while they were experiencing it. Like obviously it wasn't easy and it was still bad in that moment, but if you like take a step back, like their problems were a lot easier than the later Shadowhunters who were dealing with demons and angels and not
Yeah.
just mundane with clockwork creatures.
Yeah.
And also
And
the climax of the book, sorry to interrupt you, the climax of the book is very less climatic than the Mortal Instruments first
yeah.
trilogy was.
Yeah. I agree with that. And also like I feel like the person who they wanted to be the villain in this, I didn't hate him as much as I hated somebody else. So that was like ineffective.
Somebody else. You like Valentine, you mean?
No, I'll get into it in my criticism, because that's my
Oh,
least
okay.
favorite book.
Okay. But yes, I just wrote that. It's like because the whole climax of the book was Tessa stabbing herself, but then it wasn't her, and that was it. You
Yeah.
know? Like yes, the others went to fight vampires and Jem and Will went to the Dark Sisters place, but like objectively it wasn't
Yeah.
as bad as the situation. You know? It's still
Mm.
bad though, like I don't know, confusing. Still bad in that moment, you know?
I like, but also they kind of brought it on themselves because they were all assuming things and they weren't really like doing their research and fact checking. So the
But
whole time
Mayrix,
I was like, yeah, nobody actually said that this person is the Magister. Like nobody confirmed it, and you were all like off on your like things like, yeah, yeah, he
mm,
is totally.
but Charlotte was pretty mad at herself about that.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Wow, how could I just have blindly believed this?" So Charlotte did realize that, which I think
Mm.
counts. Okay, I'm at my last point now. Um, oh, so this was just kind of a side note that I made, just like an observation, also from reading Chain of Iron, so close to this one, is that Cassandra Clare recycles so many characteristics of her characters. For example, James and Jace have the same eyes. They both have gold eyes, and it's like easy to say, oh, someone has the same eyes, but they don't have just like brown eyes or green eyes. They both
Yeah.
have gold eyes because James has gold eyes and Jace has golden eyes. So that's a reoccurring thing. And I know we haven't read about James yet, but as I said, I read this so recently. Also, another thing is Will and Alex looks physically, they look exactly the same, which I have mentioned, but yes, just another thing. And then Will is described in this book as wearing a mask and having a mask up in Chain of Iron. James is described as having a mask and wearing a mask all the time. So very similar there. Um, and Will and Jace having very similar personalities. Like I feel like Will was a bit meaner, but fundamentally they have very similar personalities, very similar situations. Like, oh, I went through something and I have to be this way because of it. They both have that going for them. So it's just something that I noted that so many of these characteristics between the characters physically and personality wise are very similar and reoccurring. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if she just likes using those storylines. It's just something I noted.
Yeah, she does that. I don't know. I also don't know if she does it on purpose or not. But like people do, like I read a couple of reviews and stuff, and there was one like 1-star review that I was like, okay, it has spoilers. Let me read it and see what this person says. And they were like, they hate this series because like she just recycles everything from her fan fiction and whatever. And they're like, it's always the same plot.
She does recycle a lot. Like,
Yeah.
even when you said earlier that the main characters have the similar storyline, there's always a love triangle. No matter what book you read, there's a love triangle. Like, she very much recycles. And I'm not saying I have a problem with that. I'm just
Yeah.
making a note of it.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like not a bad thing because like there's a reason why all of us read the same kinds of books because we like the same kinds of stories.
mhm.
And yeah,
Oh, also another thing I just thought of, I didn't even write it down, but I noted it while I was reading Chain of Iron, is that Anna and Isabel are pretty much the same person. They both look very similar and they fight with a whip. Both of them, they have very similar personalities in a way. Like Anna obviously has her thing going, but their personalities are very similar. And
mm,
oh, and Anna has the ruby pendant, and Isabel gets the ruby pendant, and they both fight with the same weapon. They both look pretty much the same. Like obviously Anna cuts her hair off, but like otherwise, other than
mm,
that, yeah, I noted that while I was reading Chain of Iron, is that Isabel has the whip and the ruby.
yeah.
Like, could you not give a blonde girl the ruby? Like, I don't know. Why does it have to be the one that looks exactly the same as you?
I don't know.
Maybe
But
because they're family. It is Anna Lightwood, right?
I think so. I was also trying to
Mm.
remember what her
It's
surname is,
Anna
and I
Lightwood and Isabel Lightwood. So I mean, they are like descendants, which makes sense.
yeah, and
But
the eye thing as well. Like I was wondering if like um Jace got his eyes from James or from like the angel stuff. Like I was wondering if
I,
it was like a demony thing or
yeah,
an angel thing, and I
I
was like,
honestly think it's an angel thing for Jace, and I think she later decided to make James's eyes the same because
I
James.
I need to get my charger for my laptop. Sorry.
Okay. I feel like I should be playing elevator music.
Oh my goodness.
Twinkle, twinkle.
Okay, I need to make an adjustment of how I was sitting because this is gonna die. Oh dear. Nope.
Please hold.
I'm having a real struggle right now. Okay. There we go. Is that okay? It's plugged in. Okay. I'm back.
Okay.
There
As
we
I
go.
was saying, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, as I was saying, is that I think Cassie Clare wrote Jace's eyes as gold because of the whole angel thing and the angel blood, and she obviously wrote James later,
Yeah.
and I think she made his eyes gold on purpose because if you think about it, James has no reason for having gold eyes. No reason. Like he is actually has demon heritage, so should his eyes
Yeah.
not be black? Like he
Yeah.
has no reason to have gold eyes. So I think she was just like, oh, I need someone else with gold eyes. Let's make it James or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I'm fine. Continue.
Oh, that was like my last point.
Okay.
Okay, shall we talk about our favorite part when you're ready?
I feel bad. Anyway, yeah. I'm ready.
It's okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Yep.
Okay.
I just spoke for a long time.
My favorite part was that both Tessa and Will were bookworms and they kept making like bookish references.
Yes.
And I did also mention that I liked like the historical shadow hunters, but I like them more in the last hours. Like I feel like she could have done more, which she does later with that whole like vibe. And
I know I'm going to talk about that in the question part because I also have something to say about that.
yeah, so like I like it and I was excited for it, but I feel like it didn't meet expectations here. So I like the idea of it.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. But yes, I also like the bookworm part.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Okay, my favorite part was actually the prologue, which sounds weird, but I just really like the prologue. Like when Will and Jem found the dead girl in the alley, and Tessa arrived in London, and I
Mm,
just think the like setting was really good. Like the whole setup of everything was so good. Like seeing Will and Jem in that, like I don't know, it just really drew me in very quickly.
mm.
And I was like, hey, okay, I will maybe enjoy this book. I just really like the prologue. I think the whole like vibe of it was just really good. It was written very well, in my
I think it
opinion.
was set up well.
It
I do
was.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do you have a least favorite part?
Nate, like he
Obviously.
grinded my gears. I have
I even
issues
forgot
with
about Nate.
siblings doing things to each other because I feel like it's really unrealistic. Like if you have siblings,
Yeah.
you wouldn't write a character who does that. Like I don't know, like is Cassie Clare an only child? Like what? Because I
um,
would never. And like anybody that I know with siblings are like super protective of their siblings. So I feel like that was really uncalled for having Nate be like
a
how he
traitor.
is. Yeah, and like he literally sold his sister. Like he sold her to
Mm,
some guy. That's what he did.
yeah.
And
Because he
like
found out that she was a warlock, and she was like, she's no sister of mine if she's a warlock.
yeah, like I just can't believe that someone would do that. Like your opinion of someone doesn't change just like that, of just finding out like something about them.
Yeah, but Nate is pretty messed up as a
He is
character.
messed up, and like he has his problems and everything, but like, you know,
That's a valid point.
I
I see what you mean.
wouldn't, I would like
Mm,
never, no. Like you have to have
yeah.
no soul to do that to your sibling.
Maybe he has no soul.
Maybe, but
Gambling is better than being loyal to your sister.
apparently so. But like he was the villain for me in the story. I don't really care
I
about the magic.
mean, yeah, I agree with that. He was. Because the Magister didn't do a lot of bad things in the story. It was more Nate that
Yeah. It was
did
all
worse
about like the
things.
Magister's intentions and everything, and he instigated everything and whatever. But at the end of the day, it was Nate who sold out his system multiple times.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And I can't get over it.
Yeah, I get you. I see what you mean. Like, that's valid.
Yeah. And also I didn't really like I get that Will is trying to push people away and stuff, but he was also being really like way beyond where he needed to be sometimes and
He
not
was
checking
very
him.
mean. He was
He
very
was.
mean. Very much.
Yeah.
Especially to Tessa.
Yeah. And like if that was me, somebody said something like that to me, I would not forgive them as easily as I think she does.
I guess we'll still find out. Like, I can't remember how that plays out.
Because like even like when she was with Jem and stuff, you can still kind of see that she's thinking of Will.
Mm,
So she's just like totally into him being hot and cold
yeah.
with her.
But for them, it was like an instant thing, like an instant connection kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
What was your least favorite part?
I just said, like, I'm not a fan of the whole Clockwork storyline, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Like, I enjoyed the book more than I thought I would. But
Okay.
I don't like the Clockwork. Like, the Clockwork, the whole automaton thing, not for me.
Okay.
And that's
That's
like
fair.
part of the story, really, but not my favorite. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I'd
it's more
rather
like
have them fighting a demon than a Clockwork thing, you know?
yeah, it's less dramatic, I guess. And but it was also kind of I feel like it's symbolic because the time it's set is also kind of in the Industrial Revolution where those kinds of things were affecting the world. And it was
Mhm.
something that a lot of people were scared of in general, of like factories and things taking people's jobs. So the fact that they were making machines like appear to be more powerful than demons was in a way like kind of scary for them.
Mhm. That makes
So
sense.
yeah, she was trying to be very smart about it, I think, and I
Well, she
think
does do a lot of research.
yeah,
A lot of
but
research.
like not necessarily everyone would get what she's putting out unless they really like analyze it. So
Mm, I guess that's true. I
yeah.
feel like I had something to add, but now can't think of it. Oh, I wanted to say the whole Clockwork thing was in a way clever, like how they got into the institute in the end, and how they were a bit more difficult to kind of destroy and fight.
Mm,
Oh, and also another thing is I don't actually have it written down. I just thought about it. How we have to deal with like two very significant deaths in the first book already. I was not expecting it to happen that early. Like I knew it was gonna happen. I didn't expect it to happen that early.
mm.
But yeah, Thomas dying was kind of very sad.
I didn't expect that to happen in the first book. Honestly, I thought he was a
Mm,
bigger character.
that's what I meant. I didn't expect it to happen so early. But then
Yeah,
also we know where future Thomas's name comes from, and I find that really cute too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't like the fact that he died in the first book already.
And the fact that they were both kind of the servants was also kind of like, why
Yeah,
did you do that? That's kind of like treating them a bit disposable in the story at the moment, which is
maybe, but they
also,
do really grieve them.
yeah.
And like that whole scene of Thomas dying was a bit heartbreaking, you know? And the
Mm,
way he thought of Sophie, like at the very end.
yeah.
Poor Thomas. um, okay, we have no Goodreads questions this time. I'm so sad. Please, if you're watching and if you're reading along with us, comment on our Goodreads and leave your opinions because we do read them out in the live shows and discuss what you have said on our Goodreads chat. So feel free to do that. We always love doing that.
Yeah, and we had some really good like comments for the first two books, so
We had really good ones. I miss it.
me too.
Okay, then I just thought of some questions to talk about. The first question, I'll just go ahead and read it. It says, how does the series compare to the Mortal Instruments so far in regards to your personal thoughts, like likes, dislikes? What are your overall feelings about the book? Like, not the exact parallels and stuff, but more your thoughts and feelings.
I said that it was like a bit harder to get into just because of the pace being slower, in my opinion. Like the first three books of the Mortal Instruments just went like this whenever I read them. And
Mm,
like they're kind of like a cohesive story together. So you want to read the next book immediately. And like this one, it wraps up like a whole kind of segment and but it takes a while to get there. Um
yeah,
And I did like the historical fiction because I like historical fiction and I like the aesthetic, um, which obviously Mortal Instruments doesn't have.
yeah.
Um, and um, I also just noted that obviously there's like similar tropes with the love triangles. It's set at an institute. Parental figures are there, which I did like. I feel like I'm noticing the parental figures a bit more, and these ones were quite young. Like they're 23, like they're younger than we
Oh,
are.
Charlotte. Mm.
Yeah, so I was like, shoo,
I
that's a
know,
bit.
but Tessa was very shocked at how young Charlotte was.
Mm, yeah, so that's like a lot on them, but feel like they handle it quite well.
Charlotte's
And
very
I
strong.
like them. I like them more than the
Mayrus.
adult. In yeah, most of the adults in that one actually. I think the only one I really like a lot is Luke.
Oh, yeah. But Luke's written for you to like him.
Yeah. Um, and then also a troubled and feisty Herondale boy and his Parabatai. So I was just like, lol, you know. And
That's kind of true. Both the like main boys or Herondales.
yeah, and like it's also meant to be rare for Parabatai to be a thing. So I find it's like interesting how they are the main characters are always kind of something to do with Parabatai. Like all of them, like in all of her books, all of them feature something to do with Parabatai. They either have
Wait,
one
now I want to
or they
think
want
about it.
one.
What series comes after this one? It is the Dark Artifices after Mortal Instruments.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, and then Emma and Julian are.
yeah.
We don't have another series, do we? Am I losing it? Oh,
Lost
obviously
Hours,
The Last Hours.
where like James and Matthew, they're
James
Parabatai,
and Matthew, they
and
are.
Lucy
And
and
Lucy
Cordelia.
and Cordelia.
Yeah, and it's meant to be really rare for
I feel like
Shadowhunters to
it's
get.
less rare the more the books go on.
Yeah, but like it's meant to be part of the law that it's like rare for it to happen, and you got to think about it super carefully. But all of
Mm-hmm.
her main characters, it's a thing. So it's quite cool that we picked that for our book club name.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes. Um. So for me, I obviously, because I've said it now so many times, like the Mortal Instruments more than the Infernal Devices because I do not like historical fiction. I don't like things set in history. I like the more modern stuff, even though in the Mortal Instruments it all had flip phones and stuff, but like I kind of live in that time, so like it feels pretty cool. um yeah, so how do they I didn't actually make notes about this, so I'm thinking about this on the spot. um I don't know. I feel like that's the only thing because I feel like the writing in both of them is very good. I feel like they are both written very well. I feel like the characters are fleshed out very well in both series, and I like the characters in both series. And I say it like that because I like Tessa and Jem. I don't like Will yet, and I like Charlotte, and I like Sophie. Okay, yes, I like the characters. So I like the characters in both, and then in the other one, the Mortal Instruments, obviously. I mean, Clarion Jays aren't my favorite, but I do like them. Um, yeah. If I think about it, I think I like the Infernal Devices characters more. You know, like
Okay.
Tessa and Sophie and Jem, and eventually Will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like them long term, but I don't know if I like them right now.
Yes, I
Most of
like them long term, and maybe that's influencing my opinion.
Yeah, because like I know when I first read it, I like hated most of them. Like I just
Mm,
didn't connect with any of them. So
it's pretty
I
true.
think
But like
it's a long term
Tessa,
thing.
when Tessa shows up in the later books, you're like, my girl.
Yeah, yeah, like the nostalgia.
It's like you feel so proud. You're like, that's my Tessa over there.
Yeah, but I don't see her as like she grows so much. She really grows because
No,
right,
it's
she's
like
not
she's
the
not
same.
the same person. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree. It's like she's a complete, but also, like I said earlier with Jem also becomes a completely different person.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to read the second question?
Okay. Do you have a favorite character yet?
So for me, I mean, it would be so easy to say Jem, but I don't know if it is Jem. But Tessa, I don't know. I just really like Tessa. But like I said, I feel like that's influenced by my future knowledge of the series.
Mm-hmm. Like initially, I was also gonna say probably Gem, which is interesting because before I would have probably said Will for some reason. I don't know why. I think because I
Maybe.
was into like the bad boy kind of thing when I was younger. So that
Yes.
was
But also, I feel like the way Jem is written, it's meant to. Jem is written in a way that is meant for you to say he's your favorite character. Like,
yeah,
you're totally
yeah,
brainwashed to think he is.
yes. I also feel like completely that way. But I think probably in this my favorite was Charlotte and Henry.
I do really like Charlotte. And Sophie as well. Like, I actually really
Yeah,
like Sophie. And previously, I didn't even consider her, but she does feature in The Last Hours. And now I'm like, Sophie, like I actually really adore Sophie. She's like such a sweet person, but then at the same time, she's also like this feisty. She has this like feisty personality, and you think she's like this like soft, fragile girl, but then like the way she speaks to Will and just like her personality is feisty and
yeah,
stuff. So I also really like Sophie, which is surprising because I never even considered her as significant in the past.
Yeah. Like, I feel like teenage me was always very focused on like the main love story in things because I'm like a hopeless romantic, or I was, or I don't know. And now I'm like more focusing on like, oh, you're a good person versus
Mm-hmm.
this is the couple I want to happen,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Broaden our horizons a bit.
Yeah.
um
Although people
and
have told me that when you turn 25, something switches in your brain and you become a different person. So,
interesting. I always thought that was like when you're 30.
you know, we'll see. It's nearly
That's
your
wrong.
birthday too. So.
Oh goodness. Something that I just realized is that Tatiana hasn't been introduced yet,
Oh yeah, and
which I like totally forgot about, but now like
yeah,
thinking about the last hours, like Tatiana hasn't been introduced yet.
I think they show up in the next book probably, like the other
Mm,
Lightwoods. We just
yeah,
kind of got a taste of Gabriel, and he was just kind of an
an asshole.
antagonist. Yeah.
Yes. You put it nicer than me, but um, oh, I know I didn't like Gabriel, but then in the last hours, I like him. Like in Chain of Iron that I just read, I like Gabriel, but
I don't know which one is which still to this day. I don't know who gets with who.
one of them
I know who
gets
they
with
get
someone.
with, but like right now, me being like here, I don't know which one gets with which one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If I said it, it would be guessing.
Wait, who's the? Okay, that's not. This is spoilers if we're talking about. Okay, the next question is: how do you think Cassandra Clare did at writing something historical?
I felt like it was like okay for a first attempt, but I do definitely like the last hours way more. So I know she gets better. So like I'm not mad at her for doing this one because then we would never have the last hours, you know? So like I respect her progress. Um yeah, that's my thoughts
I
there.
agree, and I was very surprised because, like I said, reading the last hours so close to this one gave me a whole new perspective, and I feel like the last hours was written more true to the time. Like the way they spoke was more realistic than in Clockwork Angel. And it's kind of like in Clockwork Angel, they would still say things that are very modern. Like I think one of the lines that I actually remember was someone saying something about a thingy. Oh, just a thingy over like, and they would have never said that. And whereas in the last hours in Chain of Iron, it feels like it was written before. Like it feels more historical, like more true to how they spoke. And in
Yeah.
Chain of Iron, I really felt like I was in that time period. Whereas with Clockwork Angel, you know you're in that time period, but you don't feel like you are.
Yeah. You kind of feel like they're playing dress up a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I'm also reading Pride and Prejudice, and I've been watching it as well. So something that was actually written back in the day, comparing it to both of them, The Last Hours is definitely a bit more like in that vibe.
Mm. I know the last hours is definitely written because
Mm.
in Chain of Iron, I didn't read someone saying, "Oh, that thingy," you know. So, yes, I think the way they spoke was very modern. There was just here and there this like random word thrown in to make it sound believable. But the last hours was written better.
I have a question for you that's not on here though.
Okay.
Um, do you think that if you read all of the books that she's mentioned in this book, that you would have a different reading experience?
No. And I don't feel that way. Like, I don't know if, like, you mean like the Tale of Two Cities, and
Yeah, like those kinds of things.
I don't think so. I don't think it would influence anything. Do you?
I don't know. I think it might
I don't
because,
think it will because it has no significance to the story I'm reading
but how do you know
currently.
it does if you haven't read those? You know, it's
I
like
don't
with
know.
like how I mentioned sometimes the shows that I know she's watched and she's a fan of, how it's influenced like what she's done sometimes. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if the books that she reads and mentions might have a more like deeper significance to the books and
Maybe,
maybe
but
a better experience.
it's like she doesn't mention them that often. Like maybe sometimes when she's like, oh, when Tessa was like, oh, now I understand why Mr. Darcy or something was like that. Like maybe I'd be like, that, okay, I get that, but I don't know if it would change like the experience, you know? Maybe it's just me not wanting to read classics because I don't, and I will not be.
Maybe because I am nearly done with Pride and Prejudice, and I did understand that reference more than I did after just watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the Keira Knightley movie has nothing on the actual story. Okay, like it's you don't really get the full Mr. Darcy experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there are movies like that. Like I can think of some, but yes, that's why I just said like maybe with the quote of Mr. Darcy you'd understand more, but I'm
Hmm.
not really fussed about it, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's everything. Anything else you wanted to say or add?
Just that if you are feeling down and this is your first time reading them, just stick it out with us because it does get better. We've been there.
It
So
does get better. You need to stick around until the Dark Artifices,
yes,
which
pretty
is my
much.
favorite trilogy of the whole Shadowhunter. What's the word I'm looking for? Not series,
Chronicles.
Chronicles. That's the word I'm looking for. The Dark Artifices.
I feel like it really like picked up for me and I was like genius at the end of Clockwork Princess and
Mm-hmm.
then the end of City of Heavenly Fire. Like those endings
She's very
is
good at
when
ending
you're like,
things.
yeah, you're like, what?
I know. I just like the Dark Artifices because of all the like range. Like you have like the Wild Hunt and what's the woman's name? The trans woman.
My brain's not in that world right now.
Yes,
Okay, you
mine either. But
ask
there's
me
like
these
there's the
questions.
Wild Hunt. There's like trans people. There's um I don't know. There's just a lot, and I like
There's a
oh
lot of
Helen and Aileen
representation.
and
There's like
um
disabled rep,
oh
everything.
there's
She's just like, I'm an
autism.
established writer now, so I can do what I want and nobody can come at me. So
Yeah, and like even Ty, one of the main characters, is autistic, and there's just so much. There's just so much.
yeah,
So
or like
yeah,
yeah, it's a good time. So stick it out. It's worth it.
yes,
Don't be intimidated. We got
I know. And then all the short story collections are my
you.
favorite.
Oh my goodness.
They are so good.
They're all good.
Like
Although
my
I don't know
favorite.
how we're going to talk about those. Like, how are we going to talk about those?
Well, my favorite book in the whole Shadowhunters Chronicles is the Bane Chronicles, which is a book of short story collections all about Magnus Bane, and that's my favorite. So I'm very willing to talk about it.
You know, we can talk about it, but like, they're each a separate story. So,
No, you can.
anyway,
I don't know. We'll figure it out. We just bring things up from random stories.
yeah. I think we got to change our structure for it.
maybe to talk about each story. That's gonna be difficult. I'm gonna have to make notes.
Same.
Anyway,
Anyway,
yeah, we just love Shadowhunters, and this first little while is the hardest, and you just need to push through.
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and for joining us, and for participating. And if you watch this live show after the fact that it is live, thank you so much. If you made it all the way through, thank you. Appreciate it. Um, and we hope that you are enjoying our live shows and enjoying reading Shadowhunters with us, because we are very much enjoying them.
Thank you, and be sure to join us next month because we're reading City of Fallen Angels, which is back in the Mortal Instruments, so back to the present day, not historical fiction anymore. And if you aren't following us yet, you can find us on Instagram, Goodreads, Goodreads, and Twitter, and we are at the Parabatai BC, and links will be down below. And to join in on our discussions and don't miss our announcements. Hope to see you next time. Thank you.
And join our Goodreads group and comment on our Goodreads chats.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.